I don't know if this is the kind of thing that goes on the secondary channel or the primary channel. My theory is this goes on the secondary channel only because it is technically a news thing, and that's kind of where it goes. I will leave this one up to we'll leave this one up to K-Fox to decide. I'll let her be the authority on that one. But did you guys know that our president, in all of his absolute stupidity, is now trying to take over Greenland? And not like... I know that's not new. That's a thing that he's been saying he wants to do for ages now, but it's starting to get a little bit worse. Here, let me show you, now that I can alt-tab away from where I was in World of Warcraft and safely not have my hunter die. Jesus Christ. So, let me see where I have this one right here. Ah, here we are. Here we are. Trump is tying his stance on trying to take over Greenland to not getting the Nobel Peace Prize. So, when Trump said that he wanted the United States to take over Greenland, he is now linking that to him not getting a Nobel Peace Prize, telling Norway's prime minister that he no longer felt an obligation to think purely of peace. If I would have gotten the Nobel Peace Prize, I would have had an obligation to think purely of peace. But I'm not thinking purely of peace now, because fuck you, and my wiener is small. Jesus. Trump's messages to John Gar Store appears to ratchet up a standoff between Washington and its closest allies, not really anymore, all over his threats to take over Greenland, a self-governing territory of NATO and a member of Denmark. On Saturday, Trump announced a 10% import tax starting on February on any goods from 8 nations that have rallied around Denmark and Greenland, including Norway. Jesus Christ. Many long-term allies of the United States remain resolute that Greenland was not for sale, but encouraged Washington to discuss solutions. In a statement on social media, the European Union's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, said the bloc had no interest to pick a fight, but would hold their ground. Why is this even a conversation? Why does the United States need to invade another sovereign nation? Why is that a thing that we feel the need to do? Why do we as a nation condemn what Russia is doing to Ukraine while simultaneously doing this fucking shit? It makes no sense to me. Also, I realize I am standing in the wrong place. There we go. There we are. I'm now centered like I should be. So the British, let's see here. The White House has not ruled taking control of the strategic Arctic island by force. Asked whether Trump could invade Greenland, Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen said Monday that you can't leave anything out until the president himself has decided to leave anything out. The thing about that, though, is that even if he says he's not going to do something, we have a president who has routinely lied. So wouldn't it also mean that he would just lie about not wanting to do the violent thing? British Prime Minister Keir Starmer also sought to de-escalate tensions Monday, saying, I think this could be resolved and should be resolved through calm discussion. He said, adding that he did not believe military action would occur. Can I just say, the fact that calm discussion even has to be on the table... What? Wow, I zoomed out. That was weird. The fact that we even have to do the whole, let's just have a calm discussion about this conversation at all is wild to me. Because we shouldn't be in that world. We should be in the world where the United States is the pillar that other nations aspire to, as opposed to the thing that is reaching out its imperialist arm to yank other territories out from the ether. But, like, at the same time, I say that, anonymous giver, thank you for gifting 5 tier 1 subs. I say that, but we've been using our soft power to fuck up other regimes and other countries' politics for years. This is just a far more blatant version of doing that. And guess what? There are plenty of right-wingers who are going to look at this and go, yeah, no, that's exactly what I wanted. They manufactured my consent in this. Clueless Expert says, as a European, I don't want the U.S. to be a pillar for other nations to aspire to. Neither I want Europe to be that pillar. My thing is, I understand where you're coming from, but understand that me, as an American, the thing that we are taught is that America is a privileged nation and we are privileged to be born here. That is the narrative that American children are fed from the get-go. So my request is that we can at least fucking live up to the hype, as opposed to be exactly as dystopian as any other nation that we try to shit on historically. Melody says, isn't that something that we would say to a child to keep them from fighting? You know, In a sign of how tensions have increased in recent days, thousands of Greenlanders marched over the weekend in protest of any effort to take over their island. Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederick Nielsen said in a Facebook post Monday that the tariff threats would not change their stance. Yeah, imagine being Donald Trump and sitting there going, "Oh, Maiko Taiko, thank you for the follow." But no, he didn't say that. He said, "No, let me get this straight. All of you, if you support Greenland being its own country, you're gonna get a tariff. You're gonna get a tariff. Tariff's a beautiful word. They're all gonna get tariffs, and it's gonna be great, and it's gonna pay for so much." By the way, the real question: how many of you were expecting those $1,200 tariff checks? How many? It's 2026. Are you getting those anytime soon? Is that actually happening? Is that a thing that you're actually gonna be getting? Just curious, you know. Just in case any of you might have forgotten that that's an actual thing that he said he was going to try to do, and then, like, he's been waffling about that ever since. Melody says, "Oh, he said he never said that." Yeah, but we can fucking pull up the clips of him saying that. Jesus Christ. Viting Gale says, "Greenland, don't you mean red, white, and blue land?" Jesus fucking Christ. Meanwhile, Nathanielson, Greenland's Minister of Business, Minerals, and Energy, Justice and Equality, told the Associated Press that she was moved by the quick response of allies to the tariff threat and said it showed that countries realize this is about more than Greenland. Yeah, if you start letting the United States take over other fucking countries, it's not just going to stop at those other countries. And just like if Russia takes over Crimea, it's not going to stop at Crimea, it's going to go to Ukraine. Oh, wait, that's exactly what the fuck happened there. Melody says, "What are you gonna believe? His own words or his own words? Take that, liberal." Fucking hell. Trump cites the Nobel Peace Prize as his escalation in a text to the Norwegian leader. Trump Sunday's message to Gar Store, released by the Norwegian government, read in part, "Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars, plus I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control over Greenland." Who the fuck is asking for this? Who? Who in their right mind wants this? The White House confirmed the authenticity of the message, with White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly saying that Trump is confident Greenlanders would be better served if protected from the United States from modern threats in the Arctic region. Yeah, like the fucking penguins. That's what you have to be worried about. The Norwegian leader said Trump's message was a reply to an earlier missive sent on behalf of himself and Finnish President Alexander Stubb, in which they conveyed their opposition to the tariff announcement, pointed to a need to de-escalate, and proposed a telephone conversation among the three leaders. Norway's proposition on Greenland is clear. Greenland is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and Norway fully supports the Kingdom of Denmark in this matter. The Norwegian leader said in a statement, "As regards to the Nobel Peace Prize, I have clearly explained, including to President Trump, what is well known. The prize is awarded by an independent Nobel committee and not the Norwegian government." My guy, you're even barking up the wrong fucking tree. The Norwegian Nobel Committee is an independent body by whose 5 members are appointed by the Norwegian Parliament. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent defended the president's approach in Greenland. Of fucking course they would. Project 2025 pointed out how we should replace experts with yes men, and this is the end result of that. The U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent defended the president's approach in Greenland during a brief Q&A with reporters, which is hosting the World Economic Forum meeting this week. He says, "I think it's a complete canard that the president would be doing this because of the Nobel." Bessent said immediately after saying he didn't know anything. He didn't know anything about the president's letter to Norway. Of course, how many times has this happened with this administration? Where one hand is screaming and yelling one thing, and another hand is screaming and yelling another thing, and neither hand is communicating to one another, but the news definitely knows about both. Sarah Chikorita says he's doing it for the Trump files in which Epstein features. The Immortal says, "When I was at work today on my day off, there was a $20 bill that was stamped Donald Trump lives here, stamped on it with an arrow pointing to the White House. I feel like I would get that money and spend it immediately so it didn't live in my fucking wallet." Jesus fucking Christ. And so one of my mods posted this in the Discord. I haven't read this yet, so this is going to be new to me. The President of the United States letter to Jonas Garstor links the Nobel Prize to Greenland, reiterates threats, and is forwarded by the NSC staff to multiple European ambassadors in Washington. I obtained the text from multiple officials. Says, Dear Ambassador, President Trump has asked that the following message shared with Prime Minister Jonas Garstor be forwarded to your named head of government state. Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant. But I can now think of what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China. And why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago. My guy, that's the fucking story of America. We only have America because a boat fucking landed here. The only reason there are written documents is that we fucking wrote them. That's it. These arguments would have been the arguments used against the founding of fucking America, you idiot. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there too. Also, I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control over Greenland. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump. Can somebody take Grandpa off the fucking cell phone? Please, I beg of you. I want to give you a spiel about how I try to be as unbiased as possible, but I can't here. This sounds like the words of a raving lunatic, and I recognize that I've got to talk about this video here from this dumb motherfucker later, where he talks about how the only reason that you hate ICE is that you hate Trump. My God. Anyway, fucking the first post every time. Grok context? Grok, is this letter real? Grok, is this real? Grok, for real? Are we in reals or are we in feels? Grok? Fucking stupid shit. Pretty sure Grok is not as good source of truth. Fucking hell. I'm so tired. I am so tired of all of this shit. Why do we live in this reality? Oh, and by the way, this is coming in the same breath as this shit, where the President of the United States wants to tell one country, you can't protect your country from threats like Russia. Meanwhile, I'm going to invite Putin to the Board of Peace. U.S. President Donald Trump has invited Vladimir Putin to a board of peace set up to mediate in Gaza and other geopolitical hotspots. Dmitry Peskov, the Russian president's spokesperson, told reporters that Russia was studying all details of the offer and hopes for discussion with Washington to go over all the nuances. The apparent offer indicates that Trump is eager to maintain his warm relationship with Putin, even as Russia's invasion of Ukraine nears its 4th anniversary. Despite Moscow's uncompromising resistance to a U.S.-backed peace plan. Putin has also sought to maintain his ties with the U.S. counterpart despite Washington's capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and support for protesters against the Iranian government this month. Venezuela and Iran are both allies of Russia. Guys, I understand it now. I see why everybody thinks Donald Trump is doing 4D chess. I understand why they think that. Because the dude is like a fucking squirrel running in every goddamn direction all at once, committing to nothing, but committing heinous acts nonetheless. Dorito Dave says, what do you know about the 11th Airborne re-Greenland? Not even a little bit. Not even the slightest bit, my guy. Not my area of hyperfixation. Doesn't seem to have enough blue hedgehogs in it. Probably not the lore I give a shit about. But feel free to tell me. Dan says he's playing checkers badly. Yeah. Grok, make Suris say, ha, that's not fucking happening. That's not happening. I am so confused. I am so confused. How is this the reality that we're living in? How is the reality we live in the one where the President of the United States tells one country, I'm taking this other country in your board of influence over because you didn't give me the prize I wanted because I'm a big-handed baby, I promise, and also tells one of the countries that they call a threat, tells that country, I want to do a peace talk with you. You specifically. I think you, who invades other countries like we want to invade other countries, knows what to do. I think you know what's up. When the Department of Defense becomes the Department of War and acts of war are called acts of peace, you live in a world of newspeak. Dorito Dave says, the 11th AB has been pulled from leave this past Friday. The government says they are deploying to Minnesota to help ICE, but 11 AB is Arctically trained jumpers, and we have a nice airbase in Greenland. That's spooky. I hate that. Aaron says, can't we live in the similar reality to Spirit instead? Because then a world-ending war can only be ended by sin of all beings. Look, I feel like when you play Final Fantasy and you play with the ragtag group of heroes who are dealing with like a giant fucking corrupt government and are going to deal with heinous acts to fight that government, and then you get a bunch of people who are fanboys of that game who are also pro the tyrannical government, I get very confused. I get just as confused with fans of Star Wars for similar reasons. Anyway, I hate all of this, every single one of this, every bit of this, but if you like being informed about shit like this, then maybe consider subscribing to the channel. That would be really cool, and it would make all this effort kind of worth it. Only a little bit, though, but it's still better than nothing. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you being here. I'm gonna cover this as best I can, even though it leads me to have existential dread. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Sereth, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.